Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues. I certainly want to thank Majority Leader Stewart Cousins for both her comments and her support of this program, the Veterans Hall of Fame. I want to thank our ranker, Senator Scarcella Spanton, our chair of the Veterans Homeland Security Military Affairs Committee, and of course our ranker, Senator Jake Ashby, a veteran himself of the U.S. Army. I know we have several veterans here in the legislature, but I certainly want to recognize the nominees and their families who are here today, who are in the chamber with us today. I want to thank you for your service, for your sacrifice. As someone who served myself, I can tell you that the family is a big part when we talk about service, when we talk about what veterans have given to this country. I can assure you, whether it's a spouse, a sibling, a parent, they serve as well. And it would not be for their love and their service on the home front that allow our veterans to go and serve, whether it's on the home front, whether it's in a different country, whether it's in combat. And I certainly want to thank all of my colleagues for nominating these very worthy nominees. We're, as was mentioned, we're a day removed from Memorial Day, when we recognize not only those who served, but I think maybe more importantly, we recognize those who gave their lives in service. That's a very important distinction. And I can promise you that the nominees who are in this chamber and all of the nominees who have been recognized by being inducted into the New York State Veterans Hall of Fame, they would tell you that on Memorial Day and on most days, they probably would tell you somebody else who's not here today who is just as worthy or just as deserving. Because you always remember the folks who didn't come home. And that was what yesterday was about. And it's a reminder that as elected leaders, and I think as a country, as a state, that's the real price of living in a free country, is that somebody has to give their life. And people do give their lives in service to our country and have for its entire history. We have veterans in this group that span every conflict from World War II all the way to the most recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to thank each one of them for their service, for their commitment, not only to the United States of America, but to their communities when they came home. And I would also like to take a little bit to indulgence, if I could, to recognize my nominee, who could not be with us today, but Tech Sergeant Henry, known as Uncle Hank Ross, from Hilton, New York. He was born in Rochester. Sergeant Ross served in the United States Army Air Corps. This is before there was an Air Force. During World War II, from 1943 to 1945, he served as a radio operator and a side waist gunner on board a B-24 Liberator. Following 6 months of boot camp and basic training, he was assigned to the 450th Bombardment Group H of the 721st Squadron based in Manduria, Italy. Over his time, he survived over 50 bombing missions, flown over hostile skies that were heavily protected by anti-aircraft guns over Italy, France, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and even Germany. Like many of his fellow veterans, the pain and the agony of war for him is not too far away. He was awarded the Purple Heart, among other medals and ribbons, for not only his accomplishments, but for injuries that still plague him today. Don't be fooled. Despite his injuries, he is turning 100 on May 16th. And you can still catch glimpses of Sergeant Ross patrolling the streets of Hilton on his scooter, but don't blink or you might miss him. Speaking of games or lighthearted aspects of it, he also is quite the euchre player and remains as sharp as ever, back in his hometown of Hilton. In fact, when I called him for this to let him know that he was my nominee, he was watching television, and we had a very interesting conversation. We did not know each other very well personally before, but he was savvy enough to know that very often folks who are seniors, who are up there in their age, they get calls from people on the phone looking to scam them out of things. And he thought I was calling him as a scam. And so I had to give him my name and all my information. And I think it was his niece who was there, was able to look me up and verify that, in fact, I was his state senator, and that the Veterans Hall of Fame was a real thing. But such are the lives of our greatest generation. And I'm honored, as the leader has nominated a World War II veteran, to be able to nominate World War II veterans still, because there are fewer and fewer and fewer, and there's going to come a day when there's not going to be any left. And these people, this generation didn't just win a war. They saved the planet. They saved the world, and the world that we know today. When we talk about freedom and liberty and democracy, we talk about all these things, none of it would be possible, and much of it would not exist but for the sacrifices of that generation. And so to Uncle Hank, Tech Sergeant Henry Ross, and all of the other nominees, I want to thank you for your service, for your commitment, for your faith, for your courage to the United States of America. And I hope that everybody in this body and everybody across this country, in this state, remains worthy of your sacrifice going forward. So thank you very much, and God bless.